Oh, my sad boy. Been out all day and he doesn't like it when we're not in the house. I hope you are having a nicer day than my poor pussycat, who's been left by himself and is very sad. And it's going to be nice and quiet, aren't you, while I'm filming this? You're going to be shush, quiet. Yes, because go down there, go on my table, and don't knock over the camera. Look at this angry tail swishing here. We're going to look at another White Dwarf today. We're going to look at January 1997. That's right, isn't it? I think this era doesn't put a date on things, but yes, 1997. There you go. I should really remember because this is my childhood one, but you know how things get complicated in your memory, and I can never work out what year anything is. But yes, this is 1997, January 1997. So let's take a look. Okay, then here we go. White Dwarf 205, as I've said, January 1997. On the cover we have a Blood Angels Dreadnought. Rather lovely Blood Angels Dreadnought cover. We've got some orcs on the classic 2nd edition 40k orc buildings. We've got some Cawdor on a rather exposed area of Underhive here, looking almost open to the air, except that the air is not very nice to be in. And we've got some new stuff. And we've got Rick Priestley talking about the future of Warhammer. Now, interesting. This is the month in which Grudge of Drong was released, the first of the campaign packs for 5th edition that included these really lovely cardboard buildings, a bit of a harking back to the 2nd edition boxes to Lichmaster and Orc's Drift and Macbeth and the Riding, and those sort of boxes that have scenarios, sets of characters in them, and some buildings to play those scenarios on as a linked campaign. So a really nice throwback with obviously the printing standards, quality, style, whatever has developed, and the look of the things are significantly different. This is Richard Wright's work. Richard Wright here is responsible for painting and creating these pieces, also responsible for the Dreadnought on the front cover. And interesting that this is not the front cover that that this is not the image that's on the front cover, because you'd think a big release like Grudge of Drong, that would make a wonderful image for the front cover, but I think we get this at a later point. But this is the month in which it's released, and Rick Priestley talks about all of the stuff that's coming up. Colin Dixon and Norman Swales have been responsible for miniatures to go with the campaign pack. As always, an opportunity to sculpt some fantastic characters for the Rangers does not go by, and Colin Dixon has done a stonking job on these dwarves. I have to say, amazing though this cannon is, really pretty, great straight line work from Norman Swales here. It's not the Marauder Siege cannon, which is obviously the best dwarf cannon ever created. So sadly, it's got strong competition, and it's not that, but it is a very lovely cannon nevertheless. I had some of these elves. I've got this elf actually done up as a Hero Quest mage, replaced his sword with a staff, ignored his pointy ears, and I think I had this guy. I definitely had this guy when I was when this was new. When I saw him in here, I thought, oh, I should have that model. One of the few elves that I've ever owned. Is an interesting orcish perspective on pygmies here. Pygmies, of course, being a fairly contentious thing in the Warhammer world. Some people love them. Some people think that they are a little bit racist, perhaps. Make up your own mind on that. Personally, I quite like a pygmy, as long as it's a very decidedly fantasy pygmy. Stephen Estasoff takes us through a scenario for Necromunda here. A bit of a different one for Necromunda this time, because this isn't one that's designed to be two gangs duking it out against each other. In this case, this is, well, it is two gangs, but it's two fixed gangs. So not two of your regular players' gangs, although your regular players' gangs can get involved on either side. This is a so-called historical scenario with the Brothers of Mercy. Not the sisters, but the brothers. Actually, interesting, because my Escher gang were the Sisters of Mercy. So obviously wasn't as original with that as I thought I had been. Maybe I had stored that away in my brain somewhere. Anyway, and the Sump Crawlers gang there playing out against each other to see what see how the players would play this so-called historical scenario. Golden Demon 96 here is looking at some of the winners from Golden Demon Games Day 96. Interesting, because last week, of course, we looked at the was it in here? Yes, we looked at the 1992 painting competition guidelines, not the entries, but the guidelines for entering that competition. And here we've got the winners from 1996. So let's see what's different. You may note that the Slayer Sword winner, and also the was this the winner of the first place single miniature? Yes, that's right, isn't it? Although the first placed Warhammer 40,000 single miniature was this one. No, in previous years. Right, yes, sorry, gotcha. So, yeah, first place Warhammer single miniature. Now, you will notice that this is not in any way a stock figure. This is a conversion. So, in fact, is this one. So is this one. This one, I think, is a stock figure, just insanely well painted. This is Neil Thomason, who not only won the Slayer Sword this year, but also won the first place Warhammer 40,000 miniature in these significant or these previous years. But yeah, so they've obviously moved away from the it must be a stock figure painted exactly, painted nicely, but exactly as it comes out of the blister, to allow for conversion, which I think is a good thing. There's obviously quite a bit more conversion work to be had here. Really lovely reposing and use of the I think it's Azrael's wings and the Cyberhawk and the combi pistol there. Really nice conversion work, and it's great to see that extra work put into these figures, especially when not anyone can paint a stock model, but to this standard. But it goes that extra bit to do the conversion work on it, and I love seeing it. A 40,000 squad and a Warhammer command group we still have here. Lovely night goblins here in their bright blue robes, not black robes. And good to see some older dwarfs still kicking around as well, painted in a very newish style, or new to this era style, but definitely some older models kicking around there. Some really lovely sharp. Someone was saying on the Old Hammer community recently, oh, is everyone just edge highlighting these days? Well, edge highlighting, I know there's some nice blending on here as well, but edge highlighting has been a thing in heavy metal and Warhammer painting for a really long time. That's not just a recent thing, but some lovely blending and stuff on here as well. You'll notice an absence. Despite the fact that we have the command groups there, an absence of a Warhammer army and a Warhammer 40,000 army, unsurprisingly. I think that was a bit of a big ask. Here's again some older figures, older horses here, the old Life Elemental, which, if you ask me, is much more dryad looking than these chunky tree-ish folk. And with older riders. So nice to know that didn't immediately disqualify you. Wood Elves obviously had a very recent release, recent to this issue, and yeah, it's nice to know they weren't discriminating against people not using the old models there. Some more conversion work here, very lovely painted Wood Elf War Dancer there. Look at the swirly sigils and things on the sword, that's really nice. a very different looking avatar, a dark and gloomy avatar, a really fun and funky troll, and Orion there. Warhammer 40,000 vehicle, including this brilliant bridge lane. What is it? I don't know. Does it say? No, doesn't say what it is. Anyway, someone who recognises Warhammer 40,000 vehicles. It's clearly a Chimera chassis, isn't it? But with the mortar on top, I don't know what that makes it. Lovely dreadnought and buggy, and nice to see two very different but equally beautifully painted Escher gangs here, as well as a nice Delac gang for the Necromunda gang. And then we're into dioramas. And remember last time in the last issue, or last week's throwback issue, we were talking about how diorama could just be two figures nicely posed. Here's a wonderful example of that. You get a great sense of storyline from here. I would argue you get more storyline from this, even though it got second place, than you do from this first place diorama. This, to my mind, it's big. It's fairly impressive. You've got to look quite closely to realise that this isn't just a black box with the bulkhead stuck on there. There is detailing and painting on the walls behind. But to me, this almost feels like terrain. It doesn't really feel like there's a great sense of story. There's obviously some relationship between some of these figures, and it's nice having this guy stepping out the back here, and the Ratskins over there. But I'd almost rather just see this bit here with the Ratskin Braves and the what are they called? The I know he's a Spira. Which type is he? A Malkadon. That's it. Is he a Malkadon? A Yeld. Is he a Yeld? I can't remember. I think he might be. Anyway, the winged one. Anyway, with all of the gizmos on the floor there. I'd rather see that because it's less. There's less distractions. I feel like there's kind of not enough concentration of figures up here. It's too sparse versus not being able to really draw a line between them. But anyway, the people who judged this clearly thought that this was a better diorama, so maybe it read better in person. This classic, almost a reproduction of the Space Hulk diorama, really lovely. Again, the older Space Orcs and an older Marine here, with bits of the first Rhino kit dotted around and some really lovely little details. I like this one as well. Like this one a great deal. But the Marauder Giant Ogres I have a really soft spot for. I wish they'd stayed in production longer. They're really hard to find now. It's difficult to get hold of them. And here we have the Epic Titans, and the Epic Battle Force is still a thing. It's not an Epic Space Marine army, but is now an Epic Battle Force. So obviously still finding room in the cabinets for that. And a very lovely Youngbloods. There's no way I could have painted that when I was, whatever, age 14. Yeah, really lovely entries. Okay, so now we have Jervis Johnson presenting A Dark Conspiracy. This is a version of the ICAR 4 campaign, which Jervis has decided to run for fantasy because there was such a lot of appreciation for the ICAR 4 campaign. It was very popular, and they weren't intending to do another one, but it was so popular and there was so much demand that they thought, okay, here's a good idea. Here's how we can do it for Warhammer Fantasy. Did anyone play this? This isn't just Lizardmen versus Bretonnians, although that is very much the essence of the thing. This is about some Bretonnians have stolen some sacred plaques from the Lizardmen, and the Lizardmen are travelling through time and space to visit the old world to try and regain their plaques after a favourable conjunction has allowed them to pinpoint the location of some of the sacred plaques. So we shall have some results of that to come, I am sure. And Jervis actually, I think later, is it later in this issue? Yes, there you go. Is announcing that he's moving away from the White Dwarf team to join the the news desk team, the events, mainly as an events organizer. So this is sort of his first, although he'll be recording it in White Dwarf, he's sort of stepping away to organize those events more so than anything else. Here we have a look at dreadnoughts, hence I guess the lovely dreadnought image on the cover. The various different types of dreadnoughts that are available at this time, not just Space Marine but also Eldar, Chaos and Orcs, and a look at how to use them in games. Mark Brendan takes another look at Talisman. This edition with all the plastics, which I really like. I mean, they're Marmite, right? You either love or hate the plastics of this era. Personally, I really like the plastics of this era. I wish I still had my Talisman set, not to play the game. The game is meh, although I really convincingly won the last time we played Talisman, so maybe I should love the game now. Haha, my Dwarf Slayer beat his way to the top of the tower and nutted that dragon. But yes, the models I would still like to paint. They're very pretty. Ali Morrison and Ian Pickstock talk tanks again for heavy metal. You will have remembered that before Christmas we took a look at some tanks, and Ian said that he was going to take a look at Ali's process a bit more closely. Well, here it is, from a basic assembly to a finished article, and some of the stages in between. Obviously, the I took it in my garden and sprayed it photos are not quite as precision, atmospheric, color accurate possibly as the studio production photos, so it's a bit hard to see in these what the state the model is actually at, but nevertheless an interesting process to follow if you're interested in tanks. Thomas Pirinen looks at knights, the various different types of knights, of which there are quite a few in the Bretonnian rulebook at this time. The Grail Knights getting their release this month to coincide with that. And here's an example of a knightly retinue, an army that prioritizes knights and uses them in a particular way. We have a look at veteran Chaos Space Marines, what to do with them, and some suggestions for converting them using all of the conversion pieces that are now available through mail order. We have got Gav Thorpe talking about the use of strategy cards, which ones you should tear up, which ones you should allow your players to use, and which ones you should write for yourself afterwards. We have got Steve Anastasov deciding to create an Orc army, build an Orc army, not having anything to start off with, but then discovering that he has the lair of the Orc Warlord with this beautiful Orc sculpt and various others to base it off, and his development as it turns from an Orc and Goblin army into just a Goblin army, just a Goblin horde, and he paints rather quickly. He kind of describes his painting. He's rush painting this for a tournament, really, and his painting is pretty quick. He says himself that he's not going to win any prizes for it. You can't really make out from the pictures, but given that these are all metal Kev Adams Night Goblins that, as we know now, are pretty hard to get hold of and are figures that really deserve some attention, it's kind of sad every time you see one which is just kind of slapped paint on. But I guess they were around and they were cheap at the time. If you were studio staff and you were paying metal weight for your figures, there's not an awful lot of weight in a Night Goblin, so you're going to get your money's worth, aren't you? But here's a blow-by-blow account of his painting and also his army planning and his painting, and also how he did at the tournament, which was not terrible, but as you might expect from a largely Goblin army, or an entirely Goblin army, Wyvern aside, a Goblin army plus not getting very many points for his painting. We had a look last time at the 40k articles index, and here is the oldie index of Warhammer articles, most of them now obviously for a previous edition, but still largely compatible with 5th edition. We have a Space Wolves versus Eldar No, not true. Space Wolves versus Tyrannid, I should say. Battle report here, using, of course, the wonderful crashed spaceship scenery. You don't see Space Wolves battle reports very often in White Dwarf, so it's interesting to see how they play as different to the Blood Angels and Ultramarines that we were seeing a lot of at the time. It's also really nice to see, remembering that Tyrannids have also, for 40k, have had a recent release here, that there are still some of the old figures, the ones that we saw last week, in fact, being released for Rogue Trader. The Carnifex, the Screamer Killer, there is the same. One of these Tyrannid warriors down here is one of the older ones with the kind of dragon dinosaur-y faces rather than the mean, snarling, slightly more alien looking faces. And then the Termagants up here, sort of replacing the hunter killer models. Not quite the same models. I think there might be a couple of them scattered in there, but I think these are the new Termagant models, and yeah, very much fit the same aesthetic and filling the same kind of role in the army. But gone are the squigs, gone are the Genestealer cult bits and pieces, gone are the Zoats. We are now firmly in the realms of red and bone Tyrannid alien warriors. But Genestealers, of course, and these obviously are still the Space Hulk plastics that were around for a long time after they were first produced. And then we reach the mail order section. And what have we got in the mail order section? We've got Grudge of Drong coming out, a bargain at £12. Even back then, I think that was a good value for the set. We've got some lizard men, some skinks. We've got that Knight of the Realm and the Grail Knight metals for Britannia. These ones, it's interesting. They say Grail Knight's body shields and horse heads are not interchangeable. Well, I think the only reason for that is the what do you call them? The thing on top of the head. My brain isn't working today. Sorry, I was up at MorpCon and Grogmeet in Manchester at the weekend, and my brain has somewhat turned to mush with lack of sleep and lots of driving afterwards. So yeah, my apologies. My brain is a little bit frazzled at the moment. Anyway, I should know crests. Shall we call them crests? They're matching on the shield and the helmet and the horse head, but really you could swap them around if you wanted to. There's no practical reason why you couldn't. I just think then you could even order them. You know, they've got the order code separate, so you could order a different one if you wanted to be really obtuse. The Grail Knight legs, slightly different from the Knight of the Realm legs. Here are those really chunky plastic elven horses. The High Elf Mage that was in production for quite a long time afterwards. The General and the Heroes wasn't ever so keen on that hero. But I guess if you had Silver Helms or something, he's more of a sort of Dragon Prince of Calador type, isn't he? Here are those nice Colin Dixon dwarf characters. And the new dwarf cannon. Not really sure why they decided to put out a new one, except maybe that lots of people had the old one and might have wanted a new one. Maybe people, if you had the old one, or you might have thought that the new one looked even better back then, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think the Mordor Siege Cannon is the pinnacle of dwarf technology. Here are some Chaos Space Marine heavy weapons. These as precursors to the 3rd edition regular Space Marine heavies that would have come out within a few years of this, in that they aren't entirely shoulder based. They're going a bit more sort of hip slung bolter, almost kind of Necromunda looking in its positioning. I can imagine using these as heavy weapons in Necromunda far more so than the shoulder mounted, although this one is still a very classic shoulder mounted missile launcher looking thing. But yes, the regular Space Marines would go that way shortly after. Here are those Space Marine veteran shoulder pads for decorating your Space Marine veterans. And here are some Space Marines that you can decorate. Here are the lovely plastic Space Marines. Here's the lovely Grudge of Drong. And here is a glorious multicoloured picture of the Empire Army. Very much the same Empire Army, or at least the same characters. Look, here's last week's issue. Same Kislevites horse archers here. The War Wagon actually doesn't feature here. Maybe that wasn't released at this time. But yes, they're very much the same Empire Army versus brightly coloured Tzeentchian Chaos with this guy with the big wings that we've seen previously as a conversion. Excellent. Oh, and a couple of Chaos Familiars there. We saw those last time as well. In fact, the older in the older one. Look, there's the Walking Book. Oh, actually isn't in this series. Which is that one? The guy carrying the scrolls. Huh. Both ones that aren't here. Both later editions than this. Oh, well, never mind. Forget I said anything. There we go. That is White Dwarf 205. Hope you enjoyed a quick flick through of that. And I shall see you next week. Take care.